Hey, you guys, I have a video for you on how to do a background. And the background in question is something like this, where it's just a big, nice, soft, flat field with a drop cast shadow, this kind of a thing. This can be kind of tricky. I still find this challenging. So anyway, we're going to go over that. I'm going to show you how I use it. And basically, you only need 5 brushes. So you need a big filbert that's going to do most of the hard work. You need a little tiny detail brush. You need something kind of in the middle. And then I like to use 2 softening brushes. This is a silver mop brush. Love this guy. It's a number 14 goat hair mop brush. Sometimes I will also use a makeup brush, which you can get on Amazon, and they are awesome for blending. And this is a little oval mop. So all super useful things that I use all the time. If you are watching this on YouTube and not through my website, nataliefeatherston.com, I have a PDF of all of my favorite brushes with pictures and links and all that stuff. So if that is not up on my website when you're watching this, drop me an email and I will send it to you. All right, thanks. Okay, so I did a little bit. I know it's supposed to be like a baking show where I show you step by step, but I did jump ahead just a minute. So basically I'm using one color, which is going to be my background color, and I've got a big pile of that mixed up. And like I mentioned in the intro, I am taking a little brush like so, and I am drawing all the way around, and I'm making a little buffer zone. So the idea here is that when I have covered this, that it's going to be completely cohesive and flat and smooth in one piece of paint. There's not going to be a lot of brush marks or stuff going on. It's going to be nice and flat, and it's going to give me a really good surface to build on. Because I know I'm going to have probably 3 good passes of this background color in order to come in and glaze my shadows over it without having transition problems. So what I'm after right now, nice, smooth, flat, solid background color. The first layer of oil paint is going to be a little transparent. That's just the nature of oil paint. I don't use a lot of medium. I try not to use any solvent at all unless it's for a very specific purpose, and I will show you that. But right now what I'm doing is just using this little tiny brush, and I'm just drawing around the outside. I'm just kind of coming in, finding this line, sneaking up to it, just a little bit of a buffer. And then I'm going to connect that with a bigger brush. So I have my drawing on here, so I kind of know where I want to put things. The transfer drawing is really just kind of a roadmap. Now that I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? This angle is a little different than the way that I've transferred it. So, this is where I'm going to come in and make corrections, make some changes. As I mentioned in the previous video on doing an oil transfer, one of the reasons that I like an oil transfer line is that it stays put. I can scrub right over it, no problem. It's not going to go anywhere. So this is just me kind of coming in. I'm trying to keep this really nice and smooth and flat, and you're going to see when I go over it with the big brush how I catch this line and make this all super cohesive. So another thing that I'm looking at when I do this is drawing. I'm always drawing. I'm always thinking about drawing. And when we get to the outside shapes like this, there are going to be inflection points. And inflection points are just where the plane changes. So I'm looking right here, and I'm looking up at my model, and I can tell that there's an inflection point. This comes up a little bit, it comes down to here, and then it goes in another direction. So I just want to be sensitive to those things as I'm blocking it in. It'll be less work for me when I go to draw in and paint in this graphic. So drawing is really important, and we always want to think about that no matter what you're doing. I did a 6-year apprenticeship with Michael Aviano in New York City, who taught me everything that I know about painting, pretty much. And he used to say that painting is drawing with a brush. And I just always thought that was really cool and very true. So I'm going to just come down on this line a little bit. Now, you might be thinking like, well, what happens if I paint over my line? What happens if I do something like that? right? Because we do things like that. That is a situation where I would actually use a little solvent. I'm going to come back in with the same brush. This is just an old detail brush that's had the crap beat out of it. I'm going to get a little solvent on the brush. I'm going to wipe it off, and I'm going to just erase that. So that is a situation where I would use a little solvent just to correct or push a line back, which is why it's really important my oil transfer line is nice and dry. This may come down here a little bit. So this is kind of like a magic eraser. It's got fumes of solvent. It is not wet. I always wipe it off once I dip it in a little solvent, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just draw around. Now, you've seen here, I'm just kind of going to get this outside shape really good. I do want to just mention this because if you're looking and you're like, now hang on, what's going to happen down here? I don't care about these strings. I drew those strings on here. I transferred them. That is very easy for me to redraw later. That is something that's going to go on top last of my finished background, my cast shadow, everything. I am not going to try to paint around those. Like, there is no point. That is way too much work. I am a good enough painter, and you are a good enough painter that we can find this stuff later. I do save my drawing, which I mentioned in the oil transfer video. And one of the reasons for that is, let's say I get this whole thing done, I'm going to just draw around these. And you'll see when I do the big pass on the background how I navigate around this. There's a little bit of a trick to it because I do want it to be perfectly smooth and flat, no transitions. But I save my drawing because I might want to retransfer those lines, if I'm feeling like it, if I feel like I need it. Now, this is real simple. It's easy for me to just draw in those lines with a paintbrush later. But let's say it was kind of a complex thing. That's why when I did my oil transfer, I didn't rub oil all over the back of the drawing like you will see people do. I mean, it works. You can definitely do it that way, but I prefer to make my oil transfer on a separate sheet of paper and slide it underneath my drawing, not contaminating the back of my drawing. Because if I do need that drawing again, I don't want oil paint all over the back of it. I want to see what I'm doing if I have to transfer it again. And if I were going to transfer it again, I would use probably a Stabilo pencil. It's kind of like a little chalk pastel pencil. That over a dark background would be the way I would do that. I would not use graphite and I would not use oil. So if we get to that in a subsequent video, I will show you how to do that because that's kind of a cool trick that I learned from Kosta Vavigiakis at Art Students League a million years ago. It was probably 30 years ago when I studied with him when he was first teaching. I was one of the first students he had at National Academy of Design. Anyway, he's a really well-known artist and painter and teacher now in New York City, and he's awesome, really awesome figure painter. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep drawing around this thing. I'm going to leave the flower and the heart. I can definitely work around those with my background and keep everything flat and beautiful. I'm going to just scrub this in. So I am going to keep going around and doing this, and we'll be back with the British Baking Show when I have this all done. And then I'm going to show you the next thing that I do with the big fat brush and how to put this together so it's perfectly seamless. So I got all the way around with that little brush, and I'm going to go in with a big brush, but before I do, I've got this sort of intermezzo brush, and that's just going to come in. I just want to scumble this out, make sure I've got a big enough buffer zone. That's really important down here at the bottom because these are really tight little areas around here. So I am going to just come in, add a little more paint, make sure I've got that pretty well covered. Same here on this side. I'm going to just kind of scumble that out a little bit, just kind of rub that in. Again, I have just got straight up paint. It's very dry, no medium. I feel like it gives me a lot of control over this layer. What I don't want is like a big oil slick. I don't need that, like this paint's moving fine. You really want to think about solvent and mediums. They're really better if you use them sparingly. So it looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is come in with this giant brush that, like, I'm sure everybody is shocked to actually own one of these. I am going to get a little Marager on the end of my brush. And I'm going to come in and just start covering this. And I'm going to try to pick up the edge. I can come pretty close to that edge without hitting anything. You know, I'm tending to use sort of choppy little soft one-directional strokes. And I can get this all covered in a matter of minutes. And then I'm going to go back and finesse it. You can see how close I can get to this edge and just catch that without actually contaminating anything. Just these nice, soft little choppy strokes. Makes me feel like Bob Ross doing this. So that's the next step, is to just go around and cover this. Just pick up a little bit of that edge. Here we go. See how close I can get? And by picking up that little buffer, when I go to knock this all down with a big soft brush, it's going to look real good. So there you go. So I've gone ahead and I've covered this whole thing with this giant brush, and I'm going to just go back over it very lightly and just kind of try to get a little even. You know, there are a couple spots where it doesn't look that even. Just going to brush through this a little bit. This is a really good time to make sure you don't have a bunch of schmutz in your paint film, which is a very fancy and technical word. Dust, debris, things like that. I can go over this. I can find these little pieces and just use my palette knife and gently pick them out. Dust, debris, bits, you know, things that we just pick up off of our brushes, they get in your paint film. And the problem is that when I go to varnish this, anywhere that I've got a piece of dust or a piece of a broken off brush, basically that thing, my painting is flat and it's like this. So the light hits it and actually top planes it. If you've ever seen a painting that has a high gloss varnish on it, where there's lots of debris in the paint film, it looks like a disco ball. So I try to keep that out of my paint film, and especially at this stage. So, you know, if there's a bunch of stuff, I want to just smooth that out. There's a big one right there. Very gently. Another thing that I will do once I've got like 2 good solid layers on this background, sometimes I do go back in and sand it very lightly with like a 3000 grit sandpaper before I do the final coat. That also can make sure that I haven't picked up anything awful. I like to keep my backgrounds as pristine as possible. So now that I've gotten it there, I'm going to come in with this giant brush. This is a goat hair mop. Sometimes I also will use makeup brushes like this. These are super cheap. This is on that PDF of my favorite brushes. Shoot me an email through my website. I'm happy to send you that. But I'm going to come in and look how I can go right up to this edge, kind of overlap the edge, and I don't even contaminate it. I'm kind of using the side of the brush over here. little bit of contamination, that's okay. I am very lightly stippling this, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, you can't, it did grab a hair. So, obviously don't leave hairs in. Another thing that we can do, another really good brush for getting in places like this is an oval mop. There's lots of people that make these. Trekell makes some really nice ones that I like a lot. I can get right up to the edge with that too. I can this is maybe a little better suited for some of these nooks and crannies than the big goat mop. But the idea is that I'm getting it right up to the edge. Again, this is going to be, a little brush like this is going to be more useful in areas like this. To go around, where's the big guy? He's going to do great with this. So I'm going to go around in the first pass. And you can see right here, I'm going to just go up to that edge. So I want this to be nice and solid looking. I have a very dark background, so there is going to be a little opacity. Transparency, and that's okay. I'm going to put a couple of coats on here and make sure it's nice and solid. Oh, thank you. And I am going to use this guy in here. I'm pretty sure that big mop brush is a little large for this. And you can see how it's already starting to look pretty flat and solid. If you don't go around with a big mop brush and flatten this, it's very hard to get it even. And even is what I want. I'm going to want 3 coats of background color on here so that it's nice and opaque before I glaze those cast shadows over it. If I don't have a nice coat of paint on here and it doesn't feel nice and solid, it can be very difficult to do some of the transition work that I'm going to want around these objects. One of the most difficult things, and something that I still struggle with, is to get a background like this perfectly flat and even. Even when I'm using paint right out of the tube, you would think it would match, right? Like if I was going to come in here and fix this line and repaint another band around here just to correct a line, let's say. You would think if I had the same thing right out of the tube, it's going to match perfectly. It does not match perfectly. And that really has to do more with the opacity and transparency of paint, and why we really want 3 nice big solid layers. Again, I can come right up to this thing and sort of lay it on its side, and I can get very close to that edge. Lots of times with something like this, I won't even bother with a mop or with a little oval guy. And I want to show you, once I kind of go around and I've got this looking pretty solid, this tape a little bit, oval mop. There's another trick to this. Well, anytime you're doing a background like this, there's always a trick. And if you do contaminate it, you can go in and clean it off with just a little spirits and a brush. I'm not worried about it because as soon as I get this background done, I'm going to start blocking in that girl. So it's all going to be wet and wet today and it's going to be fine. But once I go around like this, the next thing that I like to do is take the panel and hold it like this in raking light. I've got my light source, and when I tilt it like so, I can see where it's not even. I can also see a piece of hair. So this really lets me know where it's uneven. I will make another pass or two in raking light, just like so. Little tiny. Now I'm kind of using smaller tapping strokes. It's definitely a straight up stipple, but it's really starting to lay down and look flat, and when it dries, it's going to look awesome. But doing this in the light like this helps me see where it's uneven. You know, if there is debris, if there's a bump, if there's dust. I tend to paint on very, very, very smooth panels. In the future, soon, I'm planning on doing a really long form video on how I make my own custom oil ground panels. It's been way too complex to boil down to a thing on Instagram in 20 seconds. So I'm excited to be able to put it here for you guys. But because I use a very smooth panel, I'm going to want a very smooth background surface. I don't want any texture or brush marks or stuff. To me, that kind of defeats the purpose of trompe-l'oeil. I think the idea of trompe-l'oeil is to have it very smooth, very precise. So a lot of big, brushy, broken, you know, brush strokes. That's not for me. That's not my brand. And again, I can just come in and lay this down flat and go right over that edge and really have that come out nicely. So that's that. That's kind of how we end up with this nice, flat, cohesive background. And honestly, for a first pass with a very dark color, that looks pretty solid. I'm really, really happy with that. So yeah, that is how I like to block in the background. You need these brushes, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. All right, thanks for watching.